You won't believe what happened to us in the mountains. Our own children left us to die, but one loyal friend refused to give up. Stick around to hear the miracle that saved our lives, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss more incredible stories like this. The snow was coming down in thick, heavy sheets, coating every tree, every rock, and every inch of the narrow path that led to the cabin. My husband, Greg, and I trudged through it slowly, feeling the cold seep into our bones, the wind biting at our cheeks. We had been left here, not abandoned in the traditional sense, not because anyone forgot us, but because our own children had decided that we were too much trouble. The words still echoed in my mind, a cruel echo we couldn't escape. We're sending them to the cabin. They won't survive long. It's easier this way. I gripped Greg's hand tightly. "We'll survive," I whispered, trying to convince myself as much as him. He gave me a weak smile, his eyes betraying the worry he tried to hide. "We have to, Marcy. We've made it this far. We can make it further." We had packed lightly, mostly out of their insistence, claiming we didn't need anything extra. A couple of blankets, some canned food, and our small, stubborn dog, Max. Max had been with us since he was a tiny pup, a gift from our daughter before things went wrong. And now he was our only source of comfort, bounding ahead through the snow, his tail wagging despite the freezing temperatures. The cabin appeared suddenly, a dark silhouette against the white mountain landscape. Its roof was weighed down by layers of snow, its windows frosted over. I felt a pang of fear and relief at the same time. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. We pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside, the warmth, or the faint illusion of it, hitting us immediately. Inside, it smelled of old wood and damp moss. Dust covered every surface, and a single fireplace sat cold and empty in the corner. Greg set our meager supplies on the small wooden table, and I noticed Max sniffing every corner, tail still wagging as if he knew something I didn't. We ate a small meal in silence, the wind outside howling like a living thing, rattling the thin walls of the cabin. I looked at Greg, trying to force a conversation, anything to take my mind off the truth we couldn't avoid. "Do you think they actually expect us to die out here?" I asked quietly. Greg shook his head slowly. "I don't know. Maybe they just wanted us gone. Maybe it's easier for them to pretend we're gone." That night we tried to sleep, but the cold was relentless. Our blankets did little against the icy draft sneaking through cracks on the cabin's walls. Max curled up between us, his warmth a small comfort, his steady breathing a reminder that someone still cared. I watched him sleep and whispered softly, "You'll save us, won't you, boy?" The next morning I awoke to a noise outside, a scrapping sound, faint but persistent. I rubbed my eyes and crept to the window, looking out at the snow-covered ground. There was nothing at first, just the endless white expanse. Then I saw it. Max, barking furiously, his small body lunging towards something half buried in the snow. I threw on my coat and ran outside, my boots crunching over the frozen surface. "Max, what is it, boy?" I shouted, breath clouding in the cold air. Greg followed behind me, face pale but alert. Max was pawing at the snow, revealing something dark beneath the white layer. We dug carefully, our hands raw and numb, until a small backpack emerged. Inside there were supplies, canned food, water, blankets, even a few emergency rations. Someone had left it here. Greg looked at me, disbelief written across his face. It's like someone knew we'd need this," he whispered. I hugged Max, tears streaming down my cheeks, my voice catching in the cold air. "You found it, Max. You saved us already." But the relief was fleeting. We still had miles of mountain to cross if we were to reach help. Miles where the snow was deep, the paths treacherous, and our bodies weak from hunger and cold. Yet, for the first time since we arrived, I felt a spark of hope. Max's insistence, his refusal to give up, had given us a reason to keep moving. And we had to, because somewhere beyond these mountains, a life awaited us, one we weren't ready to leave behind. As we packed the backpack, Max wagging his tail impatiently, I couldn't help but wonder, who had left it? Was it our children in some strange act of guilt? Or had the mountains themselves decided to intervene in our story? Either way, we didn't have time to question it. Survival came first. And so, with Max leading the way, we stepped back into the blizzard, hearts heavy but spirits rekindled, determined to find our miracle in the mountains, no matter how impossible it seemed.
The snow continued to fall, a relentless curtain that blurred everything in a sea of white. Greg and I trudged on, our legs heavy, our lungs burning with each step. The backpack we had found was a godsend, but the cold had already seeped deep into our bones. Max ran ahead, occasionally turning back, his eyes bright and urgent, barking as if to urge us forward. Every time I saw him, my heart lifted a little. He was more than a dog. He was our compass, our guardian, our lifeline in this frozen wilderness. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Time had lost meaning out here. The wind howled like a pack of wolves, biting at our faces and pulling at our coats. I stumbled over a hidden root, barely catching myself on a tree trunk. Greg steadied me, his hands shaking as he helped me up. "We have to keep going, Marcy," he said, voice hoarse. "Max is right. He knows the way." And he did. Max led us along a narrow ridge, occasionally stopping to sniff or paw at the snow. Once he darted down a small path we hadn't noticed, barking excitedly. We followed cautiously, not knowing what we would find. That path led to a small, frozen stream, partially covered in ice, cutting through the white landscape. Water was trickling underneath, a faint, fragile sound, but it was enough. Greg and I knelt, cupping our hands and drinking sparingly. Max lapped at the water, tail wagging, and I whispered to him, "Good boy, Max. You're keeping us alive." We made camp for a brief rest, using the blankets from the backpack and huddling close to preserve warmth. Greg tried to keep my spirits up. "Remember, Marcy," he said, "it's not just about surviving today. We'll get through tomorrow and the day after that. Max will lead us. He always finds the path." But night in the mountains is merciless. The temperatures dropped drastically, our breaths forming clouds in the air. The howling wind seemed to echo our children's voices in my head, cruel and indifferent. "They won't survive long. They're old, they're weak." But every time despair threatened to take hold, Max nudged us, licked our hands, barked as though daring the mountain to take him. And somehow it worked. Somehow we kept moving. The next morning brought a new challenge. We reached a steep incline, the snow deep and unsteady. Greg attempted the climb first, testing the snow for stability. A misstep here could send us tumbling into a ravine. I followed closely, hand on his shoulder, heart in my throat. Max bounded ahead, agile and fearless, his small body making paths for us through the thick snow. Halfway up, the ground beneath me gave way slightly, and I felt myself sliding. "Greg!" I screamed. In a heartbeat, he grabbed my arm, his grip strong, pulling me back to solid ground. Max barked furiously, circling us, alert to danger we couldn't see. That moment cemented it. Max wasn't just leading us, he was protecting us, warning us, sensing threats long before we could. Hours passed, our muscles screamed, our fingers and toes were numb, and the snow seemed endless. We were beginning to lose hope when Max's barking became insistent. He was at the edge of a ridge, looking down, tail straight, ears perked. We followed his gaze and saw something remarkable, a faint, narrow trail leading downward through the trees. It was barely visible, hidden under snow, but it was there. Someone had used it recently. We descended carefully, Max always at the front, occasionally stopping to sniff the ground or bark. The forest grew denser, the snow lighter here, but the cold was still biting. Then something miraculous happened. Max stopped abruptly and began digging furiously at a mound of snow. Greg and I rushed over, hands raw, and uncovered a small wooden crate, marked with bright red paint. Inside were more supplies, high-energy food, a thick wool blanket, a thermos of hot water, and even a first aid kit. Tears blurred my vision. "Max, you found it again," I whispered, hugging him tightly. He barked once, as if proud, then wagged his tail, ready to move on. The crate wasn't just a gift, it was a lifeline. It gave us enough strength to push further, to fight the mountain one more day. That evening, we set up camp again. Max curled between us, keeping us warm. I looked at Greg, exhausted, covered in snow, yet his eyes held a glimmer of hope. "Do you think someone is really helping us, or is it just luck?" I asked, shivering. Greg shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe it's both. Maybe Max led us to what we needed. He's our miracle, Marcy. Don't doubt it." Night fell, and for the first time in days, sleep came easier. The howling wind seemed distant, almost tame. Max's steady breathing was a rhythm that soothed us, reminded us that we weren't alone. Somehow, despite our children's cruel plan, despite the merciless mountain, we had hope. And hope is a powerful thing. The next day, our journey grew more perilous. The snow deepened and the cold intensified, but Max refused to slow down. He sniffed the air constantly, barked when the wind shifted, and always returned to us, urging us forward. It became clear. Max wasn't just finding supplies or paths. He was guiding us toward something beyond survival, something that would change our lives forever. As we climbed a particularly steep section, a storm began to roll in, the sky darkening with ominous clouds. Visibility dropped, and the temperature plummeted further. We huddled behind a large boulder, unsure if we should continue or wait it out. Max sat in front of us, alert, ears perked, growling softly. It was as if he was telling us, "This is it, the moment to trust me completely." With trembling hands, I took Greg's and whispered, "We follow him. Wherever he leads, we follow." And so we did. Into the blizzard, into the unknown, with only Max guiding us, our miracle in the snow.
The storm raged around us, a furious white wall of wind and snow. Each step was a battle, our boots sinking into the icy drifts, every breath coming out in painful gasps. Greg's face was pale, his teeth chattering, but his grip on my hand never wavered. And Max, my little miracle, pushed forward with relentless determination, darting through the blizzard, sometimes disappearing into the white, only to return and bark urgently, guiding us onward. Hours felt like days, and my body ached in every joint. My fingers were numb, my legs trembling, but I refused to give up. Greg's eyes met mine, full of exhaustion, but also fierce determination. "We're almost there," he muttered, though I could see the uncertainty behind his words. Then, in the distance, through the storm, I noticed a flicker of orange, a small glow cutting through the endless white. My heart leapt. Could it be a cabin? Or maybe, just maybe, people who could help? Max barked wildly, running ahead as if he sensed what I could only hope was true. "Yes, Max, lead us there," I cried, shivering but moving as fast as my legs would allow. We stumbled into a clearing, and the glow became clearer. A small mountain rescue outpost, lights shining like beacons of hope. The doors swung open, and a man appeared, bundled in heavy gear, eyes wide in surprise at our snow-covered, exhausted forms. "Oh my God," he said, rushing forward. "You're alive? You've got to get inside, quickly." Inside, the warmth hit us like a wave, and I finally allowed myself to sink into it. Blankets were wrapped around us, hot drinks pressed into our hands, and warm smiles surrounded us. Max sat proudly at our feet, his chest heaving, tail wagging, as if he understood he had completed his mission. The rescuers examined us, checking for frostbite, hypothermia, and dehydration. We were weak, but we were alive. Alive because of Max, our unyielding, faithful companion, who refused to let us succumb to the merciless mountains. And as I held Greg's hand, both of us wrapped in warmth for the first time in days, I realized something profound. Miracles don't always come from the heavens. They often come on four paws. The following days blurred together as we recovered in the warmth of the rescue station. News traveled fast, and soon we learned that our disappearance had caused panic. Our children, shocked and horrified by what they had done, finally realized the depth of their cruelty. They arrived at the station a few days later, faces pale, eyes wide, guilt written across every expression. I met them cautiously, fear and anger mixing with relief. We didn't know what to do," my daughter stammered. We thought you wouldn't survive." Greg's voice was calm but firm. "You didn't think. You abandoned us." Tears streamed down my face. "But we're here, alive, and it wasn't luck. It was Max. He found us, guided us, saved us." They looked at Max, who wagged his tail proudly, as if accepting praise for a job well done. The realization hit them hard, that their parents had survived, not because of them, but because of the unwavering loyalty of a dog who refused to give up. Weeks later, back home, our lives slowly returned to a fragile sense of normalcy. We shared our story, quietly at first, then more publicly, to remind people of the power of hope, loyalty, and love. Max became a hero in his own right, our little guardian angel who had led us to safety when the world seemed ready to abandon us. I still think about that cabin in the mountains, the snow that seemed endless, and the fear that clouded us with every step. But I also remember Max's eyes, bright and determined, never doubting, never slowing, always moving forward. In those eyes, I saw the purest form of love and courage, a reminder that miracles often come in unexpected forms. And as I look at him now, curled up by the fire, a small smile playing on his face, I whisper, "You saved us, Max. You truly saved us." And he looks back at me, tail wagging, as if to say, "I'll always be here, no matter what." Our children may have sent us to die,
But Max reminded us, and everyone who hears this story, that sometimes the smallest heroes make the biggest miracles.